Hey there, it's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, bringing you back for another edition of Social Media Pie. This is kind of my live podcast is how I heard somebody describe this, and I think that's a really perfect version of how to use the description here. And I've got a very special Troy Chamber guest with me here today, Chuck Vercellone. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Chuck?
Vercellone.
Vercellone. I was close.
Vercellone. Well, if we were in Italy, it would be Vercellone.
Okay, see, that's where I'm picking up on the Italian. Yeah. Well, it's delightful to see you today, Chuck. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good, good. Well, it's going to be a great conversation here today. And for those of you who are joining us, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, I just want to encourage you to please drop a comment below. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. Chuck and I are both in Metro Detroit. I'm working out of my home office in Fraser, Michigan, which is located in Macomb County. Chuck, you're actually working out of your office, if I'm not mistaken. And where is that at? Is that in Troy?
Yeah, I'm in Troy. I'm on Big Beaver, just east of Livernois, right next to the Sedona Tap House. So yeah,
nice. Good location,
great
good
place
restaurant
for client meetings.
Yeah, very good. And you've actually been working out of your office through this whole pandemic, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been here every day since the shutdown. As a financial advisor, we fell under the essential businesses. So I think I worked harder for the last 2.5 months than I had the last year. Obviously, taking care of clients' investment accounts and updating financial plans and answering questions and altering portfolios and making sure that everybody was comfortable with what was going on.
Yeah.
I was probably putting in, 10 to 12-hour days, 4 or 5 days a week, taking care of clients. So it was very hectic.
Yeah.
I've been in the office every day taking care of that.
Yeah, it's very important. And I remember when everything first started happening, my financial advisor that I was working with, she reached out to me, and she's been in contact with me throughout. And she's like, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm not sure if you've looked at your accounts, and here's kind of what's going on with the market. And I was so nervous to look at anything because what's been happening. And I didn't look initially, and then I gave it a month or so, and then I looked, and I was like, ugh. And it's starting to certainly recover, but for many of us, if you've been investing and you've been looking at your retirement accounts, the market definitely did take a dip. And you've had your work cut out for you, I'm sure, Chuck, with what you're doing. So before we jump into the conversation, guys, we're actually not talking about anything financial related today. We're actually going to be talking about networking tips and tricks. How do you define who you are and what you do? And that's really the topic that we'll be talking about. And we want to include you in on the conversation. So you can drop comments below, drop questions. If you have additional tips you'd like to add to the conversation, certainly do so. Before we jump into that conversation, though, Chuck, you described a little bit about the work you've been doing over the past few weeks, but why don't you, if you could, tell people what is your business and what do you do, who do you serve, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Well, I've been in the financial realm since 1984. I own Wealth Strategies Group. I'm an independent fee-based financial planner and investment manager. Been on my own since 2004. In the industry almost every which way you can, except from maybe a big brokerage house. I started in an insurance broker dealer, moved to a small 50 company broker dealer, and eventually joined a firm out of Ann Arbor. It was about 1,000 people. But they let us operate independently and do what we think is best for our clients, and that's worked very well for me. So I am primarily fee-based, so about 98, 99% of what I do is on the fee side. I like to say that means I get paid to provide a service, not push a product. That's what I do. I get paid to talk to clients and hold hands and update plans and work with them on achieving their goals.
Awesome. And do you work mainly with individuals? Do you work with businesses, or what's the?
I am 100% with individuals.
Okay.
I don't do any corporate work. My average client, I'm middle class. That's what that's what I am. My average client is probably about 350 of investable assets. My stance is tell me somebody who doesn't think they can retire, and I show them how they can, and I've got a client for life, and that's what I do. I train them. I treat them as family and friends, is basically the way I approach working with my clients. I like to see putting I like to see putting financial plans together. I like having a financial retirement plan in place because I think when you're looking at the investment accounts, it makes it a lot easier to determine if the investments are doing well. You take it back to the plan and say, are we still on track to hit the goals? And if we're still on track to hit the goals, your investments are doing just what they're supposed to be doing. So it helps judge that. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure kind of getting to know you through the years, Chuck. And you and I actually met through the Troy Chamber. I don't even remember where we met. I just feel like you were one of those people I just always saw at different types of events, kind of through the years. And I remember it was a few years back, Chuck, you run one of the, and they're not called affinity groups. What are they called?
I was running one of the business development groups through the Troy Chamber.
BDG, that's what they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for folks that aren't familiar, if they're in the Troy area thinking about joining the Troy Chamber, what is a business development group and why is it beneficial?
Well, if you're familiar with BNIs or LBN concept, they're basically a networking group. We sponsor them through the Chamber of Commerce, the Troy Chamber. And the whole point of the BDG groups are to create relationships. The average BDG in the Troy Chamber has 6 to 20 people in them. They are all industry specific, so you're not in competition with somebody else doing the same thing that you're doing, but it's an opportunity to really build a relationship with other people. We see each other twice a month and talk about what's going on in our business and how can we promote and how can we help each other build and grow our businesses. The Troy Chamber used to call them business referral groups. About I don't know, probably about 9 years ago or so, we changed the name from business referral to business development group. There's a lot of ideas that get passed around the table at the meetings, and your business growth might not necessarily come from referrals. It could come from ideas. And that's why we renamed it as a development that is more of a business development. The focus was, we're trying to take the focus away from solely being how many referrals did I get to what kind of ideas did I get that helped me grow my business. So.
And where my recollection of the BNI groups too is, Chuck, you have to pay to join them, but then you have to bring leads in order to get leads, and they kick you out if you don't meet all the criteria. Are the BDGs a little bit different, or
they're a lot more loosely structured? They only meet twice a month. There is a requirement for 6. You can only miss 6 meetings a year, and then you move from the group. So, because obviously we're trying to build relationships.
Sure.
You'll never see somebody in a Troy Chamber BDG jotting down phone numbers from their cell phone in the parking lot because they'll get yelled at because they hadn't turned in a referral in the last month.
Okay. And is there additional fee? Do you have to pay to join the BDG within the Troy Chamber?
As long as you are a member in good standing in the Troy Chamber, you're allowed to join the BDG groups. That's the only requirement, is that you're a chamber member.
Okay, very good. And we're kind of getting started here with the topic. We're already talking about networking tips and tricks. Chuck's already bringing a couple of these in. And with your group, Chuck, you talked about meeting in person and around the table. Are you guys meeting virtually now, or have you kind of paused, or what are the groups? Well,
I'm in a different group from the group that I brought you in on. But yeah, we've been doing Zoom meetings since probably mid-March. So yeah, in fact, we had one this morning. And I was actually the presenter this morning. It wasn't on networking. It was on the new Reg BI legislation that just went through, or that just went into effect end of last month. But we're still meeting at least on a virtual basis, and I don't know, hopefully come August, maybe we'll get together back in some face-to-face meetings. But we've still been we've still been having 2 meetings a month and have fairly decent attendance. There's about 10 people, 12 people in this BDG, and we've been averaging between 8 and 10 every meeting. So
Good. And it sounds like you're a pretty active networker. And I do have to say, Chuck, I've met with and networked with people who work in the financial industry before, in financial services, and you're not that kind of person that I think about. I mean, I for you guys that are watching, Chuck is a great person to connect with on LinkedIn. If you see him at an event, don't run the other way. Go towards him and talk to him. But there's other people where I feel like I'm always being sold to all the time, and Chuck doesn't make me feel that way. Chuck is very conversational, and he does a great job of networking And I've seen him, working the room in networking groups. I've been at Troy Chamber events and even the virtual events. And he does a really great job of making people feel comfortable and smile and laugh. And he's just an all-around great guy. So as we jump into this conversation here, Chuck, what advice do you have for people on networking?
First of all, we've mentioned the Troy Chamber, and we've got the small picture here, so we don't see the Troy Chamber sign behind you over there, over your left shoulder there.
Let me pull it up. There we go. Look at this. Let me see if I can get my thumb pointing.
So, I think as far as networking goes, the first thing you ought to do is join a Chamber of Commerce. And, one of the questions that typically comes up is, well, should I join a chamber of where I work, or should I join a chamber of where I live? And, my typical reply to that is yes. It's where you're going to build relationships, where you will run into people, where you'll meet people. So you can be members of multiple chambers. So they're fantastic places to meet and grow and build those relationships and network with. And the Troy Chamber is, in my mind, is one of the best. I've been in the Troy Chamber since about 2005. I've been an ambassador for the Troy Chamber since about 2006, and I'm in my third year on the board of the Troy Chamber at the moment. So yeah, I'm gonna do nothing but tell you great stuff about the Troy Chamber. I'm a believer in it.
So you use the phrase, I hope you don't mind me jumping in, the phrase ambassador, which, categorically we can all say we're ambassadors of organizations that we support, but this is actually a role that you hold, a volunteer role. What does that mean, an ambassador?
Well, the ambassador committee, basically our job is twofold. As people join the chamber, one of the first faces, one of the first contacts they make is with an ambassador. We go out and deliver a welcome kit. We talk to people about all of the benefits of being in the chamber, the various networking programs that we have, the various groups, committees, structures, and how to use the chamber to grow their business. So that's number one. The other thing that we do is at the various networking events, and it's a little harder, obviously, with the virtuals, but on the face-to-face events, we basically, we're the people that are connecting people at the meeting. I chaired the ambassador committee for a couple of years, and one of the comments that I made was, at any networking event, it's our event. If you have people over to your house and you see somebody standing in a corner by themselves, not talking to anyone, are you going to leave them there, or are you going to walk up, talk to them, start a conversation, and get them involved with somebody else? That's what the ambassadors do at the face-to-face networking meetings, is to make sure that people are comfortable and they're meeting the people that they need to meet. So it is a big commitment. And I'm very proud of the ambassador committee that we have at the Troy Chamber. We're very professional and do a fantastic job of bringing out the various benefits of belonging to the chamber. So
I love that, because I feel like that's one of the things that when people talk about networking, it can be very intimidating. You walk into a group and it looks like everybody knows everybody. People are paired off in conversations, and then you feel like you're that anomaly, that person who walks in who knows no one, who's I usually go for the coffee table, guys. I mean, I go for right away to the coffee line, and I usually can talk it up with somebody while I'm grabbing my cup of joe. But if you see somebody in the corner, I love that the ambassadors, it's something, I didn't know you guys did that you kind of walk over and you say, hey, what's your name, Brenda? Oh, Brenda, come meet Chuck, and get them into conversations. That's nice.
Yeah, we're constantly ragging on each other for, hey, there's a group in the corner. They're all ambassadors talking to each other.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I try to, when I would go to events and we'd book a table of people and we're all sitting together, I'm like, we'll sit and eat together, but I'm going to go work the room until we sit, because it's, that's what this is about. It's about networking, right?
Well, yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems that you see a lot of times with networking events are you walk into a networking event and somebody that you already know very well comes up and monopolizes your whole time at the networking event. And I'm here to meet somebody new, don't take it, don't take it the wrong way, but I already know you. I'd like to, I'm more than happy to talk to you a little bit, but I've got to go meet somebody else. So is that
what you do when you get into that conversation? If I monopolize you, Chuck, and I'm talking, you're like, Brenda, we already know each other. Do you kind of poke out of that conversation, or how do you get out of that?
Basically the best route is to say, hey, it's been great talking with you, and I'd love to continue a conversation. Let's have coffee next week.
Mhm.
But maybe I've got a short time here, and there's a couple people here that I want to meet. Let me give you a call tomorrow, and we'll book something else in. But I've got to talk to somebody new.
Okay, good. Kind of throwing it back to them too to continue the conversation. You're giving them a path for that.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
So outside of the chamber, and again, this goes back probably about 10 years ago, I took a class. At the time, it was called the Referral Institute of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now it's called Ascentive. It's actually a adjunct to BNI.
Okay.
The individual who created BNI created this program also. So I jumped into this. I think it cost me $4,000 to spend time learning about networking. And a lot of what went on in that program really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. In fact, actually, when I went to jump into the program, the guy who was running it called me and said, "Why do you want to join this class?" And I said, "Well, I've been in the financial industry for 20 years, 25 years. I've heard probably 25 presentations on referral marketing.
Yeah.
You said some things I hadn't heard before. And some of the things that you said that I had heard before, you had a step 2 and a step 3. It was really interesting that after all of this time. So I jumped into the program, and there's a lot of things that I pulled out of that I use today. And I've actually made some presentations to the chamber. In fact, beginning of last month, was it last month? It might have been this month. I'm getting old.
Yeah, what is it? We're in July. Isn't it crazy how
I did a presentation to one of the committees, the Leadership Enrichment Group, and talked about exactly what we're talking about today, some of these tips and tricks and how do you define yourself. And that's what really kind of jumped out at me with that program on how you handle yourself in discussing who you are and what you do. And me, I try to make a joke about everything. And probably 30% of them land and do well.
Most of the time they're okay. Sometimes I'm like, I think I've even called you on it like once or twice. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that was funny, Chuck.
Yeah. But
we're on that level. I could tell you that.
And one of the illustrations that they had when I was in the class was how's business. And I came back with my usual reply, "Hey, I can't complain. Nobody will listen. And if they do, then you got to listen to them. And who wants that?" And I really learned that, every one of those questions, you really have to turn into an opportunity to create a networking connection.
Yeah.
And the issue was more of not getting bogged down in details. Like, everybody hears about the elevator pitch. You got to have that little 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And you still run into places. And, well, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm an attorney, or I'm a financial advisor, or I'm an insurance agent. I do marketing. And that tells people absolutely nothing.
Right.
And you have to take those questions and turn your answer into a story that illustrates more about what you do, how you do it, and how your clients feel. The one comment that the quote that I typically throw out when we're talking about networking and how you talk to people about what you do is that phenomenal Maya Angelou quote, that people don't remember what you did for them, but they do remember how they made you feel. And I know I probably bastardized that, but that's the gist of it. So, instead of, the how's business, business is good, or business, I'm down 20% because of COVID or whatever, you want to be upbeat. And hey, business couldn't be better. In fact, last week, a client came into my office with this problem, and here's what we talked about, and here's how we solved it, and here's how the client felt at the end. That's how you answer a lot of those questions. So you want to turn things into stories, because when you tell a story, people put themselves and the people they know into the story, and it really makes a bigger impact it really makes a bigger impact on them. Yeah. One of the most impressive questions that I had to work on in that program was, well, why do you do what you do for a living? And I had to sit back and think about that. And it really took a lot of thought to it. And basically what I ended up coming back with, when people ask me that question or similar to that kind of leads down that line, right. I tell them about my dad. Let me tell you about my dad. He was a pencil paper draftsman all of his life. He didn't know CAD design. He worked for a small company, no retirement plan, no 401k, no pension, no nothing. And when he was in his early mid-60s, the company got bought out and he wound up on the street. Couldn't get a job. He went from having a full-time job with a purpose in life to not knowing what to do. And I'll tell you, that was the day he started to die. I do what I do so my clients don't go through what my dad went through. They can retire on their terms. And that's really my thought process. That's why that's how I treat clients. That's how I do things. But it really gives people a better idea of, well, somebody, you got to do something, and I have a degree in, and hey, I like selling. That doesn't tell people a lot. But a story like that really gets your heart out there, and really helps make that connection. So by taking a look at the most common questions people are going to ask you at a networking event, what do you do for a living? How do you do it? How's business? Why do you do what you do? What did you do before? You got to think those through and turn them into stories that really illustrate, who you are, and help them make that connection a lot better than just, hey, I'm a financial advisor.
Yeah, what I've heard from you too is, I think you brought your why into that. We've heard of the Simon Sinek, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And you're not just doing it for the money. You need to have a job to have, pay for your mortgage and to have groceries. And we all need to have a job. It's okay to make money. But what I heard is there's a greater reason for what you do. And you draw from personal experience, your connection with your dad, and you see what he went through. And that makes it like, wow, Chuck's a real person. He's not just in this for the commercial aspect of it, but he sees the why behind it, and he knows that there's value in what he has to offer. And there's a personal connection. I really like that part.
Yeah, it shows them that you really have a passion for doing what you do.
Right.
And if you don't have a passion for doing what you do, people are going to look at it as, well, your passion is just earning money.
Right.
And, the people want to do business with people that are passionate about their what they're doing, and are going to have a passion about helping them solve their problems.
And I think, unfortunately, Chuck, there's been some of your peers who work in your industry in financial advising, financial planning, who seem to be in it for the money, who seem to be driven by that and not the people element or the why element of it, unfortunately. But I think that's what makes you're such in stark contrast to so many other people that are in your field. And what I know of you through the Troy Chamber and through the networking, you demonstrate that every time. You always make me laugh. You always make me smile. You make others feel important, engaged. You're always in bringing them into conversation. So you really do a great job with that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So moving along, what other tips do you have for us on networking here?
Well, you do have, as I was kind of talking about stories, you have to have a few different stories of varying lengths. You need that little 10, 15 second blurb about who you are. You need a 30 second, you need a 60 second, you need a couple of minutes, depending on the questions. So, you definitely kind of need to think those through. One of the first networking events I attended when I joined the Troy Chamber, and this was kind of funny because as you'll see, what the individual did for a living. But I had come up to an individual, and I couldn't remember what the name tag was. It was like Smith and Company or something like that.
Yeah.
And as I looked at the company name, I said, "So, well, what do you do? Are you a CPAs?" And he says, "That's the question, isn't it?"
Is it? And
okay, are you attorneys?
Right.
No.
Wow. Was this person not a good networker, or was there a reason they were?
Yeah. And after 2 or 3 of those, I finally said, well, okay, obviously, I'm going to move on and talk to somebody else. Wait. We're a sales training company. And I went,
was that part of their shtick?
Have you taken any of your classes?
Really?
Yeah. I won't throw the name of the company out because there is another franchise of that in the Troy Chamber, and they are phenomenal. Let me say it's not the same experience, but I don't want to throw a bad light on them because the company name is basically they're working through the same process. But it's you don't want to piss people off. But and I'm sure the class he took said, well, when people ask you that question, the whole point is to get them to ask more questions.
Yeah, sure. But the approach is a little.
You don't want to be,
It seemed like closed off. Like
about it, when people ask me what I do for a living, my typical response is, I help my clients enjoy the longest vacation of their life.
That's nice. I like that.
And that'll open up
yeah. Boy, I'm looking at your LinkedIn headline right now, Chuck. You should have that as your LinkedIn headline. I don't know if you can do that through compliance or not, but that's compelling. It says something different.
Ask the question where you can expound on it a little bit. Well, how do you do that? That's when you start. Well, let me tell you about the client I just worked with last month, and then you tell the story. Mm-hmm. So it's creating that interest that they're going to want to ask a follow-up question without being really haughty about it and turning people off. So
okay. Yeah.
That's the biggest problem that I do see, in a lot of networking is people. Yeah, I think the 2 biggest issues if you walk into a networking event you see are people that are afraid to talk to anybody, or the people that have that, well, I got to say something smart and get them and you're not telling me anything. You don't really go into great detail. And then the other thing that you got to keep in mind when you're doing any networking, you're working at any networking event, you are not there to sell anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The absolute last thing you want to do at a networking event is try to sell somebody your service.
Yeah.
You're looking to do at a networking event find somebody that you think that you might be able to have a connection that you can build on and do a one-on-one later. Hey, and keep those conversations should really be no more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, quick.
Hey, it was really great meeting you. I'd love to continue this conversation. Can I give you a call next week and we'll set up a time to get coffee?
So let me shift this conversation too, Chuck, because we're in times right now of COVID where all networking for the most part is virtual, right? And we're doing Troy Chamber virtual meetups and happy hours and trivia hours and things like that. So what tips would you offer people for virtual networking? And I've seen you do some different techniques. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I know you probably have some tips on virtual.
Well, the first thing, and depending on the platform that you're using,
and
a lot, especially through the Troy Chamber, a lot of the virtual networking are going through Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom has the ability to put the virtual background behind you.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how many others allow you to do that. When I'm on a Zoom meeting through the Troy Chamber, the upper right over my right shoulder here is my logo.
Okay.
So you know who I am. You know my company.
Yep.
So a lot of times people put their first name down. They don't put their company name down. So you might be looking at it. It just says Brenda.
Yeah, and Brenda's in her living room or something, right?
Marketing. So I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing. But, so if you're doing any virtual networking and you've got an opportunity to put up a virtual background, put your logo up there. Let people know who you are. They always know who you are. And then the chat feature, if the chat features are functioning, put your name and contact information in the chat so people can see that. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, they have that opportunity. I think that's really primary. And then at the same point for networking, at the chamber, anytime we do any virtual networking event, Sheila, our phenomenal director of membership, you get an email from her with a list of everybody who attended the meeting.
Yeah.
So, reach out to somebody and say, hey, it was great seeing you on the meeting today. It's been a while since we talked, or I haven't met you yet. Let's, if you've got an opportunity, let's do a Zoom meeting. Let's do a Zoom session, or let's set up a phone call, or are you comfortable with a face-to-face meeting now? Let's stop someplace for coffee and kind of get to know each other a little bit better. So just because you're not face-to-face on the networking, make sure that you're still letting people know who you are and what you do, and make sure that you're following up on all of those, so that you can continue to take those connections a little bit further forward. The whole point of making a connection is to build that relationship. And if you're not doing a one-on-one later on, having lunch, having coffee, making a phone call, if your entire networking conversations are at a networking event, you're not gonna be successful doing it. You have to take it outside.
Yeah. Good point, because the networking events themselves are kind of surface level, quick conversations, and then the one-on-one by extension can get that conversation longer. I want to go back to one of your tips, and I put a couple of them below, and I encourage for those folks who are watching, whether you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, whether you're watching live right now as we're doing this broadcast, or if you're watching later, add your tips below for virtual networking, for in-person networking, add to the conversation. But one thing Chuck mentioned was using chat. And I don't know about you, Chuck, but when I go into I'll use the Troy Chamber, and there might be 20 to 30 people in this session, and they do a great job. Sheila and Tara and team, they do a great job of facilitating, so only one person is talking at a time. And you get your 1-minute introduction sometimes, or we just kind of use chat to introduce ourselves. But what I do is I now will, if I see Chuck in a session, I'll just private message him through Zoom, and I'll just say, hey, Chuck, great to see you again. So my kind of equivalent is if I walk into a room and I see Chuck across the room in person and I know him and he kind of waves, I'm going to go over and say hi to him quickly, and then I'm going to go and network without. And I kind of feel like it's the same way in a virtual group. There's an opportunity for you to chat, and you could just say, hey, Chuck, great to see you, and then go back into the group discussion again. But there's an opportunity there for that relationship building and for that dialogue building. And you've done that, you and I, we've chatted back and forth sometimes in the Zoom sessions that we've done for the Troy Chamber.
Yeah, especially when whoever's speaking is boring,
See, I wasn't going to go there.
But I would.
No, but what's funny is they do a great job. They do the bell, they ring the bell, but now it's great because when you're in a Zoom session, they'll ring the bell, but then they'll mute you. If you're going long, you're cut off. That's it. But yeah, there's some opportunity for offline networking. All right, guys.
And one other point, on the face-to-face, one of the things that we do at the Chamber is the Morning Jam program, which I think we actually have a live one coming up in maybe August.
All right.
Morning Jam in the Troy Chamber. Jam stands for just a minute.
Yeah.
And basically what it is everybody has just a minute to step into the circle and tell everybody who they are and what they do. The one area that has always annoyed me at those sessions are, obviously people want to get their business cards out.
Yeah.
So they step up and they do their 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and then they go back and start handing out cards.
Yeah.
So somebody else is talking and the person next to you is going, here, take these cards.
Right.
And it takes the focus away from who's speaking.
Yeah.
If you want people to listen to you, you've got to listen to them and have the respect for the people who are talking. And Sheila's done a great job lately. We have to, every once in a while, we have to kind of kick up the knowledge of what's going on, that, hey, if you've got something to hand out, put it on this table over here. We'll let people know if they want it, they can pick it up on the way out. So that they're not, I was at one of those morning jams, and this goes back probably 8 or 9 years ago. There was a property casualty agent that did his 60 seconds. And he walked around the circle personally handing stuff out to people.
While he was talking?
In front of me, and I can't see the person who's talking.
Yeah.
Well, you wanted us to listen to you, but now you're distracting everybody from listening to everyone else.
Right.
If you want respect, you have to give respect.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah. Well, this has just really been a great conversation here today, guys. And if you're joining us a little bit late, we're talking about networking tips and tricks. How do you define who you are and what you do? And Chuck, you've given us so many great tips already about, having your elevator pitch. And I think you mentioned a 30-second, a 60-second. Was there another one? There's like a short version, a longer version.
It depends on the question. The why do you do what you do? That could be a 2-minute conversation. Because there's good information in there. So it really depends on the conversation and on the question that you're getting asked. You've got to be able to provide a good, solid answer. And it's not always 30 seconds. It's not always 60 seconds. So if there's something that somebody really wants a little more information, you've got to be able to have that putting it together a little bit longer. So you're not just putting yourself on the spot and trying to think of what to say. Have a couple of those that you've already thought through, or at least know the format. So if something happened last week, you can flip that into that same conversation.
Yeah, and that's a really good reminder too, having it prepared. And that's something I've been doing when I'm going on the Troy Chamber events, the virtual events even. I have a little Post-it note and I jot down, if I've got a minute, what do I want to talk about? I want to introduce my business. I usually try to give like a free LinkedIn strategy tip or something, because that helps with the storytelling element. It helps to create memorability. Giving free samples, I think can be a powerful thing. So I like to kind of jot it down, because I don't know about you, Chuck, when it comes to me, I always get like, oh shoot, what am I going to talk about? Like, I know myself, I know my business, but I get kind of frozen. So like jotting it down on a little Post-it note, and I don't read it, but I refer to it. I might have 3 bullets on there. Here's 3 things I want to talk about. And then the great thing is I just put that Post-it note in my desk drawer. And the next time I have a networking event, I pull it out again and I'm like, okay, yeah, here's what I say in my intro. So some good reminders there. So at this point, guys, what I want to do, we're going to start to wrap in the next few minutes here. If you do have any questions for Chuck, you can drop those in the comments below. And it takes about 30 seconds from the time that you enter a comment for it to come up on screen. So I'm going to vamp a little bit as we're going through, but I have been showing your comments up on screen as we've been going along. And we're international today, Chuck. We've got folks from Toronto. We've got folks from India that are on with us, and we're Orlando, Florida, Michigan, and we're all across the country and all across the world, folks that are joining us here. So thank you all for joining. And yeah, guys, definitely drop your LinkedIn URL. This is something, Chuck, that I do, even if in the Troy Chamber, if they don't say in the introduction, drop your LinkedIn URL, I will put that into chat and I'll start the process off and I'll say, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn, keep the conversation going. Sometimes they'll say like drop your email or other contact info, and I love how they use the chat. But I try to follow up with people on LinkedIn. I give you a hard time, Chuck, because I remember when you booked me to speak to your group a few years back. I couldn't let this go, this whole conversation.
I know, yeah. My love-hate relationship with LinkedIn.
So I did this whole presentation on, I don't know, optimizing your time on LinkedIn into Chuck's group. And I got done and he's like, yeah, I don't know. And it was more not what the information I had to share about LinkedIn. It was his own kind of, I think it was your own apprehension with the platform, Chuck, or maybe some of your results, or.
Well, it's obviously they change things around, and just when you get used to something, it's gone or it's someplace else, and I get so frustrated. The frustration I have with people on LinkedIn is and I know it's an area that you harp on and really point out, is that connections tab. I don't know how many people you look at their connect tab and there's no phone number. Okay, fine, I can see that, but there's no email address.
Yeah.
And the only way you can talk to them is messaging through LinkedIn. Well, I'm a financial advisor. I've got compliance issues.
Right.
And there's things that I can't do via LinkedIn, or like I can't have people give me I can't have people tell me what I'm good at or give me
the recommendations or the endorsements or things like that. Yeah.
So it's like I'm looking for, if I'm reaching out to you, I want to send you an email because the emails go through our compliance servers, and it's I don't necessarily get all of that through the LinkedIn format. But hey, if you want to connect with people, why do you not provide them the information that they need in order to connect to you?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
The other one is I've had 3 people in the last week want to connect with me, And, and obviously, some of them, there's no reason. They don't give you a compelling reason. What is it? Your Princess Bride LinkedIn suggestions.
The Inigo Montoya, right?
Yeah. And so I do connect with somebody, and then all of a sudden, over the course of the next 2 weeks, I get 2 or 3 LinkedIn messages with something that they want to sell me.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's not the purpose.
Yeah. It's conversational. It's building up trust, building up dialogue. And, a hard no for me is when you sell to me in your invite. Immediately after, sometimes people don't sell, but then immediately after they're pitching you hard in their second follow-up message. I think it's a little bit about relationship building and earning trust as you go. And I'm open to connecting, but not if the only reason you're looking to connect is to sell to me. That's not a strong reason. Are you open to connecting with folks, Chuck, who send you an invitation if they do include a personal note, if they're watching today, or what's your
I look at it as what's the benefit, and it's got to benefit me as well as you. If I don't see that if you're going to reach out to connect me because you've got 5 more people to hit that magic 500 connections on LinkedIn, don't bother. There's got to be a good reason there. I'm always looking to connect. I post my weekly economic update on LinkedIn every week. So if you're connected with me, you can see that I put a post there, and if you're interested in reading it, fantastic. I am open. I definitely am open to building the relationships and building the networks. When I was let me just take one step back, which kind of fits with this. The past president of the Troy Chamber, Ara Tapuzian, when Ara asked me to join the chamber, one of the comments that he made was, we need more people on the chamber that get a tremendous amount of business out of the chamber. And I said, time out. If I'm going to judge my entire success at the chamber with the amount of business I've gotten out of it, I'll turn in my membership card right now. And he says, well, why are you a member of the chamber? And I says, well, the benefit that I have at the chamber is not only the business that I get out of it,
right,
but the people that I meet. Because I have an entire book of people who provide products and services that my clients need.
Right.
And I know if a client comes to me with a need, I've got somebody that I can turn over that client over to that is not only going to take care of my client in the manner that I would want to be taken care of, they're going to make me look damn good in the process.
Right.
That's a phenomenal membership, a chamber membership benefit. And in my mind, that's the whole reason you build those relationships with people, whether it's in a chamber or not, is to have the ability to further to take care of the needs of your client, whether it's something that you handle or not.
Right. So it's the connections. And when you're approaching networking from the perspective of what can we learn from each other and share with each other, and not what can I sell to you and what are you selling? Do I need to buy it? When it's a broader perspective, I think it could be more successful is what I'm hearing you say there.
Yeah. Well, when you're creating a relationship with somebody, if you want to build a relationship with me, I'm going to be looking at how can I help you build your business, but it's got to be two-sided.
Yeah.
If you're looking to build a relationship with me just to get at my book of business or to get business for me, and there's nothing that you can hand back, that's not a relationship that's going to work. That Referral Institute program I was talking about, one of the initial concepts they brought out was there are 2 types of relationships that you're going to build. You're going to have a referral source, and you also can have a referral partner. Okay. A referral source is somebody who's going to trip over one of your ideal clients every 2, 3, 4 years. A referral partner is somebody who is actively involved in helping you build your business. We're actively involved in helping them build theirs.
Good point.
And that's what you want to strive to, is finding it. Not necessarily knocking the referral sources. We all need referral sources. But the epitome is finding that referral partner and build that phenomenal relationship with.
Awesome. Well, really great thoughts here today, Chuck. And we could probably talk for another hour. I think we could. We could definitely go, but I want to be respectful of kind of the calendar and the time here today. I highly recommend, I know you do too as well, joining the Troy Chamber. There's so many great virtual networking events. And whether you guys connect with Chuck on LinkedIn, I put his URL up a little bit earlier. I'm going to refresh it back up on the screen. And then if you go to his website, I had it up on screen just a moment ago, Chuck, but I know you guys have some coronavirus update information that's out there for folks to check in on. There was a question, somebody who had asked about your weekly economic updates. And if I'm remembering, you said you post those on LinkedIn. That's where people could get that information from you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So yeah, Kathy, if you wanna send me a LinkedIn connection, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
And then you can certainly see those on my posts.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Chuck. This has just been a delightful conversation today. I really enjoyed talking with you. I've always known you're a strong networker, and when we kind of booked this session here today, I was like, oh, we're going to learn some new tricks up Chuck's sleeve on networking, and I just think like this has been a great conversation here today. Did you want to offer any kind of final comments here, tips, shout outs, anything before we kind of wrap the session today?
Not really. The one thing that I do bring out when I talk to chamber groups about networking is, if you're going to sign up for a networking event, don't just walk in cold. Do your homework. Okay. Find out what type of people are going to be there, what type of occupations you can expect, because how you handle yourself at that networking meeting is going to differ based upon the type of people that are going to attend. So you want to be prepared. You just don't walk in and say, well, it was a waste of my time. It was a waste of your time because you didn't do your homework ahead of time. So
there you go. That's on you. Very good point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chuck. Always a delight. And what's the next Troy Chamber event that you'll be at? Do you know what the next one on your calendar is?
Well, let me see what's coming up. I know there's one running right now. August 13th, we've got Coffee News and Networking.
Okay.
Which is a really interesting one that we do through the chamber. Okay. That one is more quite Q&A kind of thing.
Okay.
And we talk a lot about various events, various committees and so forth, and really how to get the most out of your chamber membership. So that one's coming up relatively soon.
August 13th. We'll check that out. And go to troychamber.com, guys, if you're interested in learning more. I feel like this has been a promo for the Troy Chamber this whole call today. Wouldn't you say, Chuck? We'll ask for our check from Sheila and Tara later. All right. Well, thank you again, Chuck. And we're looking forward to seeing you at upcoming events. I just want to thank everyone else for watching us here today. If you happen to be watching this later, still leave a comment below. I'll share the links with Chuck if you do have any additional questions for him. I'll make sure that gets to him. And then also make sure you go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe so you get notification about my future LinkedIn Live Social Media Pie interview series. And the last ask I have for you is, before you step off of the video, please click to share it with your network, especially if you do belong to a chamber, if you know of people in your network that are looking for some networking tips. There were so many good nuggets in here today, and I'd love to spread the word. Tag Chuck when you share the post, and that helps to give him some additional visibility.
And if you're not working with Brenda on your LinkedIn page, you're foolish. She looked. I had her look at mine, and there were a couple things that she said, hey, this is fantastic. You've got it in the wrong section.
Right.
This from here to here is going to give you more exposure. So yeah, definitely contact Brenda, have her take a look at your LinkedIn page, and get some suggestions and help from Brenda on how to be better at LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you, Chuck. See, I've won you over. I've gotten you to think about LinkedIn differently. It worked. All right, guys. Thanks again, Chuck. And everyone, thanks for watching today. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you online again soon. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks.